All right, welcome to another episode or webinar of the Sarasota County Starter Kit, a guide to living on the Suncoast. My name is Armando Ubeda. I'm the Florida Sea Grant agent here at the Extension Office, and I'm a marine biologist. And today I'll be presenting to you, if this works, about your connection to Sarasota Bay and the Gulf of Mexico. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about wetlands today. If you don't know what extension is, we are part of the university. It's a partnership between the university, the county, and USDA. We look at Twin Lakes Park here in Sarasota County, if you are here in Sarasota. And we have many different areas of work or programming, from agriculture to youth development to natural resources. And that's where I am located, in natural resources kind of area of extension world, since I'm a marine biologist. So I'm the Sea Grant agent in the extension office. If you don't know us by name or by the programs, you might have seen some of our logos, some of the programs that we have here. Right, we have the Sea Grant, which is I belong to it. We have other ones like Master Gardeners, Lake Watch, and some others. So that's some of the logos that you might identify as extensions as well. And just for disclosure, we are no discriminatory institutions. So we're in accordance with federal law and USDA, right? We don't discriminate against anybody, and our extension programming is open to all. And with that, let's start with the presentation. And thank you again for joining me today. I'm excited to talk to you about wetlands. So during this webinar, I'm going to focus into what is a wetland, some type of wetlands, what is the importance of wetlands, or threats to wetlands, basically a connection to them and how they're threatened and why they're threatened, and things that you can do to help our wetland systems. And for those of you who join us, if you have a question, please type in the chat. I'm going to be monitoring the chat, or you can wait to the very end of the presentation and I will let you unmute yourself and ask your question directly. All right, just checking if it's recorded. It is recorded. Perfect. So what is a wetland? By definition, according to the Environmental Protection Agency, a wetland is an area where water covers the soil or is present either or near the surface of the soil all year or seasonally. I like the NOAA definition of wetland, which is an area of land saturated with water. And this can be, again, through the year or, you seasonally. But wetlands are extremely important, also known as swamps, right? Mudflats. They have many different type of names. But wetlands are basically areas of land that have been covered by water. By the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, there are 5 types of wetlands. We have the marine wetlands, in this case, shallow sheets and coral reef are examples of that. Estuary wetlands, which can be mangroves in our area, or mudflats, riverine, ponds of delta, lakes, right, floodplains as well. They are wetlands, and marsh, and basically marshes are also considered wetlands. So basically, wetlands have multiple names, right? Swamps, mangroves, mudflats, floodplains, lakes even. So it's any area of land that is covered or saturated with water, either seasonally or through the whole year. And you find wetlands all through the world, even temperate areas in the Arctic zone. The only place on Earth that you don't find wetlands is the Antarctica. We have different ways to categorize wetlands, and these are basically defined or categorized by the abiotic and biotic factors. So basically physical factors that can affect the wetland can be like soils, the type of soils, like, in an area can be sandy, clay, rocks, topography. So basically how's the incline or what the topography you have in the soil or in the terrain, the climate, right? If you move from the equator up to northern latitudes, you have temperate zones. So a wetland can be either tropical, right, or temperate, or even as I say, in the Arctic Circle. So it can change, and that defines the type of organisms that can live there. Obviously, hydrology, how the water flows, right, with sources of water. That can also determine the type of wetland that you have. Water chemistry, in this case, related to mainly salinity, right? If you have a brackish water, or it's a freshwater system, or it's a salt marine kind of wetland. So that also defines the type of wetland you will have. And the vegetation, obviously, all these different physical factors can determine what kind of plants and animals can live there. So vegetation are something that can establish and dominates the type of wetland you have. And other factors, obviously, like human disturbance, especially when we change the hydrology, right? We built around wetlands or in wetlands, we drain wetlands, so that can also affect or categorize the type of wetland that you have. And wetlands can be really tiny, right? Or you can be massive type of wetlands. So you can have them all different sizes and all different shapes, but all they're extremely important. And I'll go to that in a second. Again, if you have any questions, please type it in the chat. If you cannot hear me, just please let me know as well. I hope they all can hear me well. So there are two general types of categories of wetlands, again, defined by these abiotic and biotic factors that I showed in the previous slide. But the two general kind of wetlands are those that are coastal or tidal. So basically those that are affected by tidal fluctuation. In this case, in our area in Sarasota will be Sarasota Bay, right? Some of the creeks that can be affected by tidal fluctuation. And then you have wetlands that are inland or non-tidal wetlands. In this case, lakes or rivers more farther up inland as well. And we have both too in our country. We have coastal or tidal wetlands, and we have inland or non-tidal wetlands as well. The coastal wetlands in Florida, again, we do have inland wetlands, but in our area, the most specific type of wetlands that we have are mangrove swamps, as you can see, and marshes. We don't have as many marshes here in Sarasota, but we do have some, and we mainly are dominated by mangroves. So our estuary, which is a type of ecosystem, have multiple types of habitats. Like mangroves are that habitat. They also are a structure or a part of a wetland as well. And these are wetlands in general, extremely productive systems, right? Both terrestrial and coastal, terrestrial and marine aquatic ecosystem rely on coastal wetlands and habitat. I'm going to talk to you about that in a second as well. So what wetlands is so important? They are extremely important to us in many multiple reasons, but I did a quick summary of some of the functional importance of wetlands. The first one is the water storage, right? Wetlands function like natural sponges, basically storing water for us, and slowly releasing it. And this is a way of replenish the not just surface water, but also water that is deep in the soil, in the earth, which is connected to groundwater, I should say, which is connected to the wetland itself. So it's a basically way to store water and to conserve water. Wetlands also, because the vegetation or structures around the wetland can also slow down water movement, which is preventing from erosion. So it's a good for erosion control, keeping soil in place, but also reducing flood heights and allow for groundwater to recharge. So like you see this picture right here, this wetland, right? This is a seasonal wetland, but this water right there slows down erosion. It basically recharges the groundwater, and it's a good way, again, to storage water. So that's wetlands are extremely important. Once considered like swamp or like areas that they were not important at all to us. Now we determine that extremely important, especially for water conservation. Also, wetlands serve as water filtration systems, so a natural water filtration system due to all the type of organisms and flora that lives there. They can basically absorb a lot of these nutrients, dissolved nutrients that are in waters that we don't want in our water bodies. So basically plants trap some of these sediments or these type of nutrients that either absorb them or keep them in the soil as well. So basically cleaning the water for us. And the source of nutrients can be multiple sources of nutrients, right? Natural sources of nutrients, but also can be anthropogenic sources of nutrients like fertilizer applications, manure, leaking septic tanks, among others, other type of pollutants, right? They get trapped into the wetland and either absorbed by the type of organism that live there or trapped into the sediments or the bottom of the wetlands, which again is a really good way to keep pollutants away from water bodies and to prevent, affecting major ecosystems. So wetland is extremely important as well for that. Water storage, water filtration. One that you probably already know is that wetlands are very highly productive type of systems. They're extremely important. Some of the wetlands, like estuarine wetlands, especially, are considered nurseries of the sea, where a lot of animals and basically organisms, from birds to reptiles to fish, start the life. Give you an example, right? Goliath grouper is a fish that lives offshore, but when they're between 0 and 8 years old, they live in the estuaries around the mangroves, so they're connected to the wetland. That's just one example. There are multiple organisms that depend on wetlands and organisms that we care for, right? Organisms are extremely important for us, either like horseshoe crab, they're extremely important for us for medical reasons, like oysters as well, that provide food for us, birds that we like to see, manatees, etc., etc. So it's abundant vegetation, abundant type of fauna that lives around wetlands. And again, since wetlands are all around the globe, right, there's multiple type of organisms that live in wetlands in the globe or around our planet. Just to give you another example, a lot of the endangered species that we protect and that we care for are tied to wetlands. And this is just a few examples of those type of species that are threatened or endangered that they are tied to wetlands, either inland wetlands or coastal wetlands. So you have, for example, the American alligator, crocodile, marsh snake, bald eagles, well, you name it. There's multiple examples of wetlands, and without those wetlands, these animals they wouldn't exist. So in order to conserve this type of animals that we care for, we need to also protect our wetlands. Let me check the chat box. All right, great. No questions so far. So as a quick summary, right? Wetlands are extremely important because they provide refuge for a lot of aquatic and terrestrial wildlife. They're extremely important for a lot of the vegetation, the flora that can live there. Right? Some of the vegetation is very unique to certain wetlands, so extremely rare type of vegetation. Obviously, are more broadly distributed, but it's extremely important for animals and plants as well. Like I told you earlier, they are excellent sources of water storage and also to remove nutrients and pollutants from natural environments. And again, provide habitat for multiple organisms and protect our coast from coastal erosion. And that all translates into economic benefit to us. Just to give you some examples, right? We're very tied to wetlands culturally. Places that we go to recreate, places that we go to spend time with our families, places that we go to, for spiritual reasons. So we basically are connected to the wetlands, and we have been since humans being in this planet. We are dependent and connected to wetlands at a high level, right? It's also because they're very highly productive, a lot of biodiversity, big biomass or higher biomass of organisms, right? This especially fish. This is an area we go to collect and gather food. So basically provide food for us, either for recreational purposes, commercial purpose. Wetlands are extremely important for food production. And that obviously has economic value. As you know, Florida is one of the fishing capitals of the world, right? And we do have a bunch of wetlands, and that's people coming here from all over the world to fish. We have actually, it's 30%, about 30% of Florida is considered wetland. And I think it's about 10% of that is marine type of wetlands. So either coastal or marine type of wetlands. The rest it's inland or more terrestrial type of wetlands. Again, all extremely important, right? Not only for water storage, which is also has economic value to us, clean the water as well, right? Cultural, like I said, full production, places we go to for recreation, right? Being outdoors, we already recognize the importance for that for our health. So in order to have healthy communities, right, you have to have a healthy environment. And that, for instance, since they're all over the globe, right, have healthy wetlands, a healthy planet as well. And they provide protection mainly against erosion, right? Big storm surges, things like that. If you live in Florida, you know the importance of mangroves and preventing flooding and reducing the impact of huge storm surges, and also hurricanes. So they're all extremely important for protection of our communities, our infrastructure as well. So even though they're extremely important, we recognize how critical they are for survival, and not just us, but to many other wildlife, right? They are threatened. Wetlands are being threatened for multiple reasons. One of the main one is changes of land uses. So basically our activities changing, converting wetlands, which again, not too long ago, they were considered wastelands or swampy areas that they have no value. And even though, well, now we extremely recognize the importance of wetlands, they still being transformed into, urban settings or farms or changing for agriculture purposes. We just have to be a little bit smarter and have to be built and what is the changes of land use, right? The traits that we have, the trade-off that we have to compromise. But anyway, other changes of wetlands into other land uses is also being agriculture, especially not in our area as much, but all developing countries, especially from wetlands, like especially mangroves and estuaries, into shrimp farming and things like that, which can be done sustainably, but when you remove a whole wetland, sometimes that's not the best idea. And that's, well, basically changes of land use has contributed to depletion of wetlands. And I'll show you some statistics about how we're doing in terms of wetlands in the States. Other things that can damage wetlands or threat to wetlands is basically, well, loss of coastal wetlands can be also caused by pollution. And it can be chemical pollution, right? It can be other type of pollution. Even marine debris can be, which is any artifact man-made, can sap in the ocean. So Great Lakes, right, can be trapped into mangroves. For example, after the hurricane that we had, there's a bunch of debris trapped into mangroves, right? That can be that can negatively impact the function and also the survival of that wetland. So there's so many different ways that pollution can affect the wetland. In this case, you have an example of scars of seagrasses over seagrasses, which can deteriorate the seagrasses, which can create more sediments into the environment, which can also put in jeopardy some of the adjacent wetlands associated with the seagrass meadows. Even spills of oil, for example, offshore can cause major damage to wetlands because those pollutants are carried by the ocean currents, right? You have the example of the oil spill here in the Gulf of Mexico, which affected multiple wetlands, especially in Texas and Louisiana, where most of that oil was pushed into it. So there's a lot of things that can actually cause damage to the wetlands. And also natural events, as climate change is, we're affecting climate. Seas are becoming warmer, right? Some of these storms are becoming more frequent and more intense. So natural events can affect wetlands, right? But now with intensifying those, I guess, those natural disasters, some way affecting the intensity of some of those, right, can have a negative effect on wetlands over time. Wetlands can recover, after some of these natural events, right? But it depends on the scale and the intensity and the frequency of those events. Some wetlands might not be able to recover. According to U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, wetlands that keep declining and have been declining. They have a really good report. So if you go to U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, I put the link there. You can get the latest report about wetlands. It was published in 2019, so it's not it needs to be a little bit updated, but they keep updating their site, and they do have a map that you can go to it. I have a link at the very end of the presentation where you can look at all type of wetlands and through in the state and also through the whole country, and a very useful and very easy to use maps as well. But you can see here, the more half the wetlands in the lower 48 states are gone, and some of the areas that are losing wetlands at a higher rate are the Southeast, the Great Lakes, and the Prairie Potholes. But yeah, we are located in that area where Southeast, basically, we're losing a bunch of wetlands, which is not a good thing based on what I told you before about how important they are to us. This is just a quote, the director of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, that there are multiple reasons why wetlands are declining, right? But we need to recognize how important these wetlands are to us, not just for our, present us right now at the moment, but also for the future of our species, right? For these generations to come, especially since population is increasing, right? Our urbans are expanding, so the needs for water, clean water, and all the different services that I told you are increasing, so we need wetlands. This map actually represents, this is from 2019, from 2009 to 2019 is when it has one of the biggest loss of wetlands in the States for some reason. But these areas in this map that they are in the brighter colors, that's the areas they have lost, or at least this more rapid loss of wetlands. As someone can see, again, the Southeast, Florida, and some of the other states around the Gulf of Mexico are some of the areas they're losing the wetlands in a very rapid rate. And once a wetland is lost, right, it's really difficult to recover that, to restore. Even if you restore a wetland, it's very difficult to gain back all this ecosystem functioning, all those ecological services that wetlands provide. So restoration, yeah, it's a good way to try to bring some of those services that wetlands provide to us, but sometimes you cannot replicate them, to how they were. So there's always going to be a loss in that regard. And that obviously will affect communities of fish and plants that are extremely important to us. This picture right here shows us this south part of the county. This is a picture of 1948 with all that gray coloration, especially dark colors or the dark circles are wetlands or bodies of water. It's considered a huge wetland. And the map below or the picture below, all the yellow, those are housing developments, those are houses, streets, and things like that. So we don't only not just change the terrain, right, remove wetlands, but also we have changed how water flows. And since you remember, a wetland is an area of land that has been saturated by water, either through the whole year or seasonally. So if we change how water flows, we're affecting our wetlands as well, because they're getting the source of water is either, it's not the same that it was, right? It's either, getting the water that they needed, or they're getting in through a different type of the year or a different volume. So it can have very negative impact into the wetland itself and functioning of the wetland and all the different animals and plants that depend on it. And like I told you earlier, since we keep growing, populations keep growing, we keep expanding, we keep building more, right? Climate change and all those things, the need of wetlands is going to increase. So not just for our present, but our future, we need to maintain and restore and keep our wetlands. So what can you do? I'm almost at the end here. It's only half an hour webinar, but there is multiple things that you can do to help your wetlands. The first thing is to visit and learn about your local wetlands. You can use that U.S. Fish and Wildlife mapper that I was telling you about to locate some of the wetlands around your county or the state. But we have plenty here, from Mayaca to our estuary to Sarasota Bay to even Celery Field, which is a restored area, right? That's our good examples of wetlands in an area that you can go visit and start learning about it. Because if you don't know what you have, you don't know what you're losing, basically. So knowing and understanding the type of ecosystem, type of habitats we have in our county is extremely important. The type of fauna lives there, the type of fauna depends on it. Extremely important. It's a really good way to connect. And like I said, not only to recreate, but also being outdoor, being nature is being recognized as one way to contribute to your health. Another way to conserve and protect wetlands is to better management practices for your landscape. We have many native plants in our state that they are very good part of the wetland systems that we can use as ornamentals, or we can use in your lawn or around your house. That will help maintain the connectivity. It will help maintain the wetlands and maintain the functionality of those wetlands, even if they're already modified by us. You still can positively affect a landscape instead of removing all the native species and not providing good services or providing good buffer for this wetland. So in this cartoon, it shows that we're recommending a 10-feet fertilizer-free zone for any area that's near a body of water. This can be either a pond or like a creek or the bay or anything. You have to have a 10 feet at least fertilizer-free zone and a minimum of 6 feet zone where you use native plants, that buffer zone with plants. So if you see a pond with no plants or no native grass all the way to the edge, that's example of something we should not do. So you can improve the health of the wetlands by maintaining some of the native vegetation. We do have the Friendly Landscaping Program here at Extension Office. So if you want to know and learn more about the type of plants that you can grow in your area and can be positively affect the wetland, then come and visit us, because we can provide that book and those resources for you. Other best ways to conserve wetlands, it will be by, again, better management for your landscape, removal of invasive species, especially vegetation, right? Invasive plants can have a very negative impact on wetlands because they tend to colonize and replace or encroach native plants. In this case, I have this picture of Brazilian pepper. You all probably know Brazilian pepper. If you know, again, you come with the Extension Office, you can learn about invasive species. But this is one that is non-native, now invasive species, because it's causing harm to the ecology or functionality for wetlands in all the areas in our state. This is an ornamental that was brought in from South America, I think in the 40s or 50s, I might be mistaken. But basically it was brought us for ornamental. It's still being, it's illegal now to plant it, but you can see it is all over the state, right? And well, maybe not in the north quite there yet. But it's very sturdy plant. It can actually tolerate high salinity, so it can actually out-compete even mangroves. So this is a plant that we don't want, and this is just one example of many invasive species that they are affecting all wetlands. Other way to keep our wetlands healthy is by reduce the use of fertilizers and pesticides. We have an ordinance here that from June 1st to September 30th, you cannot use fertilizer in your lawn. And this is basically because it's the wet season. So we have, let's see something in the chat. We have most of the rain, so it can carry all that stuff into those pollutants, into the wetlands. And since we have reduced the number of wetlands, that filtration of those pollutants has decreased. So it's not just okay to pollute, but now we're still polluting in some ways. And if we don't have those wetlands to filtrate that water or those pollutants from it, then obviously it's going to have a negative effect. All right. And yes, I'm going to talk about the mosquito control. I think that's where you're going with that question. I won't have time for that. We're almost at the very end. Other ways to conserve your wetlands, and this might seem very simple. It's very simple, and you might think, which is picking up after your dog. Sorry about that. So we have a way to conserve wetlands is by picking up some of the potential pollutants, right? Dog poop is one major source of pollution for wetlands. Believe it or not, right? We have so many people that have dogs and don't pick up after their pets. Well, that poop, it won't just decompose. Actually carry a lot of pathogens, right? And nutrients to local waters, which we don't want. So just doing simple things like picking up a few pets, that's a great thing to do. And especially if you have dogs, it's easy to pick up their waste. Cats, if you have cats, keep them indoors, right? Not just for the poop, but also because of other reasons. It's a good way to keep pets indoor. Also, driving less. And again, there's multiple examples so you can help wetlands. These are just a few examples, but driving less and use public transportation will decrease some of the CO2 or carbon dioxide they put in the atmosphere that actually comes back into our wetlands. It can actually add pollutants to our wetlands as well. So it can have an effect in our systems. And then another example, which is very easy that you can do, is to, when you wash your car, either take it to a designated place because stormwater or the water drains in the stormwater system go directly into these creeks, rivers, or bay, which is some of wetlands, right? It's not cleaned by anybody. It just goes directly into it. So if you have some kind of soap, these places have a place to kind of capture all that type of water and kind of cleanse it and clean it a little bit. But also, if you want to wash your car, your household, make sure you buy products that they're not harmful to the environment. So you can read the label and you can read the type of products. Some of them are actually not harmful to the environment. So just doing simple things like that can have a huge impact into our wetland systems as well. Another way to connect and protect wetlands or conserve wetlands, like I said, it's just not visit them, but get to know them. And we have multiple programs here at the extension that you can be part of this. One of them is the Florida Master Naturalist program, which is basically you become a Florida Master Naturalist. So you learn about natural history of Florida. We have a specific module. It's called the freshwater systems and the ocean systems. Obviously, we teach about wetlands there, inland and coastal wetlands. So it's a really good way to learn and a fun way to understand the ecology and natural history of our state. We also have citizen science programs, so you can participate. You can help monitor and manage wetlands. We have the friendly landscaping program, which teach you about the type of plants, right for the right plant, the right plant for the right place. I think that's the motto for that program. We have the Florida Waters Stewardship program, which also helps with conserving, understanding, and protecting water bodies. Lake Watch is a program developed not by the university, but we are part of it, which helps monitor basically lakes and freshwater system. We have a water watch too for marine and brackish water. So there's multiple programs you can get involved with, and doing simple things like I told you before, marine debris can have bigger negative impact on wetlands. So doing cleanup, participating in beach cleanups, wetland cleanups is a really good way to also help in conserve wetlands. And last but not least, donating. You can donate to an institution like UF, right? That does research and create programs like this and offer webinars and things like this to protect and teach people about the importance of natural ecosystems, but also even buying or paying for the extra fee for a license plate that actually help wildlife, like in this case, that help wildlife. That actually then not only give money to wildlife, but also provides money for conserving and protecting some of these systems that this wildlife depend on. In this case, like I show you, wetlands, right? A lot of the endangered species that we have here in Florida, threatened species, are connected to wetlands. So just by having the lines displayed, you'll be contributing to the conservation and preservation of some of these wetland systems. Some of the reference resources that I use for this webinar come from NOAA. You can just type NOAA wetlands, you get a lot of resources, and a lot of, not just for a state, but for the United States itself. The EPA also has really good resources and things that you can do to manage and protect wetlands. And like I said before, the National Wetland Inventory from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, that's the map and link that you can use to see what kind of wetlands you have nearby, or you had nearby, in case you want to restore some of the wetlands. It's a really good resources. And with that, thank you so much. This is my email. If you need or have any questions, please feel free to do so. I'm gonna stop recording, but you can see this presentation later on. We're gonna put it on our website. If you have any questions about this presentation or something else, feel free to email me at my email right there.